Hello.
Hello.
Hi, what's going on? We're once again peeling back the layers of Seville. We are Sevilla on air. I'm your host today, along with Shay Carlberg. My name's Sarah Silverstein, and this is Shay.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you. I picked up really quickly. Andalusia is filled with a lot of passion. If you wanted to start off about that.
Yeah, so thinking about it, today's episode is going to be talking about art in Andalusia, something that we call here arte puro, right? Something that you feel when you walk on the streets, whether you're looking at the buildings, whether you're catching an impromptu flamenco dance, a moment of folks in the neighborhood tocando palmas, clapping, maybe singing, and it's just something that you feel when you live here. And thinking about it, we're basically gonna dive in today. We have a very special guest who I'm gonna introduce in a bit. His name is Alejandro Varela. Just to give a little sneak peek, he's here with us. For those of you who are maybe listening, you can't get the visual, but we do a visual recording that you can find on YouTube as well. So feel free to check that out. You can kind of actually see what we look like as well. So we have Alejandro here today. And yeah,
We're going to be talking about Andalusia, the important artists who were born and lived here. We'll chat about some influential artists in history, and then our guest.
yes.
Yeah.
And Alejandro is a CIEE professor, but he also is an artist himself. So we're very excited to kind of pick his brain on both sides, whether it's his long career here at CIEE, and then also what he does in his free time and how he enjoys to he enjoys making his own really like Andalu art. Like he really makes some amazing things. So we're gonna give him a chance to talk about that as well. And it's actually funny, Shay and Alejandro met when all three of us were on a trip, CIEE excursion to Granada. Yeah, and it was a really great experience. I've been there quite a few times, but every time I go, I walk away with a new like feeling. I walk away with a new, I don't know, piece of knowledge for sure, but it's just a really beautiful place with so much history. It's really invigorating. I love going to Granada.
And you can smell the greenery.
Yeah.
Like it's all just a whole experience when Sarah and I were walking through it. So
Yeah, it's
nice.
amazing. And right, when I think about art and I think about Granada, I think of one of the greats who was born in Andalusia. I always think of really Federico Garcia Lorca, right? A very important person in Andalusian history, but in Spanish history, right? An Andalus poet, a playwright, and a theater director who really impacted Spanish literature quite deeply. He's actually known for having introduced parts of the tenets of European movements like symbolism, futurism, surrealism into Spanish theater and literature. And Granada was his home city. So, I felt like it was very natural for all of us to kind of come back together, speak on the podcast, bring us back to Granada, where we all kind of got to know each other, right?
Yeah, I myself didn't really know about Garcia Lorca's his connections to Granada and that was his home city, so that was really cool to hear about. Also, it was just an interesting excursion just to hear all about everything, getting to learn about the tales of Alhambra. The American poet Washington Irving, that was really cool to learn about. The Sleepy Hollow story that was
Yes.
inspired by Alhambra and just all with the headless horseman, if
Yeah.
anyone's heard of that. Probably so.
And can you imagine? I feel like that guy kind of maybe is the goals for working at home. He actually lived
Hmm.
on the premises of the Alhambra while he wrote and many
Ideal
of his
work from
things.
home situation.
Ideal work from home situation. Can you imagine? So gorgeous. And thinking about the Alhambra, right, there's also like that surrealism. It's a surreal place.
Hmm.
And it's also very much real and has a lot of history. But I think, maybe for myself, growing up in the States, I think that there's a very simple simple way to reason this. It's that when we think about history in the States, it's not as old. It comes
Hmm.
from a different pot of history, right? So I think from that perspective, from just the beauty of the Alhambra, and when we think also about Andalusia and other artists, we also think of Picasso, right? Another artist who was born in Malaga, who was also really interested in surrealism at one point in his career. So yeah, I think that when we dive into it, it's just there's whew, a whole waterfall of folks that we can
Mhm.
get chatting about.
And if we circle back to Sevilla specifically, one of my favorite types of arts is azulejo. Am I saying that right?
Oh, see?
That we have a lot in this house.
Yes, exactly. Got it under your mugs right
Yep.
here. The ceramic life of Triana neighborhood. I love it. It's
Yes.
one of my favorite parts. And Sarah, don't you live in Triana?
I do. I do live in Triana, and I have to say that it's really beautiful. I always give advice to my students to cross the river. I think that the center is amazing, but I think it's super important to cross the river.
Yeah.
And something that's super cool as soon as you cross, if you're maybe crossing the Puente de Isabel, right, which is I think the most iconic bridge to cross to get to towards Sevilla. It's like kind of you're entering like the main entrance of Triana proper, I would say. You know, if you just cross the bridge, you pass Castillo de San Jorge, which is it's on the right hand side if you're coming from the side of Seville. But right next to it, there's actually a restored like Fábrica de Cerámica, a restored ceramics factory, Ceramica Santa Ana. That's actually been preserved into a museum today. And you know, you can go there and you can see preserved ceramics that date back to Moorish times, and also pieces that are designed by really important architectures and people who have left a mark on the city, like Aníbal González, who was the chief architect of the Sevilla Iberoamericano Exposición of 1929. You know, so you can also go and see some kilns. I think that's the coolest part.
Yeah.
You get to see the old kilns that have been really preserved, right? It's like how did we I feel like all around Sevilla we're like, how did people do this? Like, how is this possible? It's so amazing. So I think that that's definitely another kind of, I don't want to say hidden gem because I don't think it's underrated, but I think it might not be the first stop on students' lists. So I want to recommend that.
Yeah, it's decently rated, I would
Yeah.
say.
Okay, good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
I
She's
love
checking me a
Triana.
little.
Yeah.
That's good.
Do
That's
you live
good.
in Triana?
No, I
No.
wish I did. I visit all the time. I actually have a favorite coffee place that's more like a modern one, Selva. I'll
Selva?
plug it.
Okay,
I
Selva's good.
love the owners of the shop.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's
exciting.
also located right next to Mercado de Triana, going
Yes.
back to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
which is the prettiest market ever. I love it there.
And has a little flamenco theater in there,
That's
which
cool.
The
is
smallest theater in the city.
the smallest theater in the city. And I've always wanted to go to a show there, but I've never had the opportunity to.
Me neither. I
Right?
think it's only for 15 people.
15 people. It's super, super, super tiny. Super tiny. So, on that note, you know, I kind of want to bring up some of the instruments possibly that we
Oh,
also get into
yeah.
when we talk about guitar.
So I learned here in Sevilla while I've been here for the semester that the six-string guitar that we know today originated in Spain.
Yes.
And there was also the lute that originated in southern
Medieval
Mesopotamia,
shout
but
out.
specifically Spain with the guitar. And you see that all the time with people playing their guitars around the streets. When we were in Granada, we saw some. When I was in just every trip I've been on, I think I've seen them. And I think it's so cool just to see that all over. And we can thank Spain for that.
Yes. And also Alejandro, he'll tell us probably a bit, but he also teaches a lot of the
The
flamenco.
flamenco, and I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago that the guitar of Spain was considered like a war heretic too.
Oh.
So the chord that they use and the guitar that it was transformed between the what you say the lute
Mm-hmm.
to the flamenco guitar
Yeah.
is very recent.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
And it is always accompanied by dancing, which is
Yep.
so cool. So you put those two together and you get Sevilla.
And to put all of these things together, let me tell us a bit about Alejandro because we've been dancing around these beautiful concepts of art, talking about art in Andalusia, but we have an artist. We have an Andalu artist right here. So let's talk a little bit about who Alejandro is, his connection to CIEE. So here we go. Today's fabulous guest is Alejandro Varela. Alejandro is from Alcalá de Guadaira, but he has lived in Seville since 2012. Regularly, he teaches the history of flamenco music in Andalusia at CIEE. And since 2005, he has developed most of his professional career in the field of study abroad with a special interest in transmitting the Spanish culture and heritage to his students. He holds a bachelor's degree in art history and an MA in American history from the University of Seville, as well as a professional training formation in design. Over the past few years, he has focused his studies and research on flamenco as a means to understand anthropological, cultural, and linguistic history of Andalusia. I don't think we could have had a better person on today. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Well,
Thanks for
thank you.
being here.
Thank you for the introducing. It's a pleasure to be here. Yes, am. I've been working for I don't remember, maybe 15, 16 years, 15 years today. I live in Sevilla for 12 years. I'm not from here. I'm from a town,
Yeah.
but I love to live in Sevilla
Yeah.
and be closer to CIE.
It's true. I gave Alejandro a ring before we started the episode, and I said, "Hey, what's up?" I said, we're gonna start recording soon. What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, I'll be there in a minute. Don't worry, I'll be there in no time." So, again, we really want to thank you for your time. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. And thinking about that, I also want to say that you are a really special experience for a person who makes special experiences for our students. Better said.
I'm trying.
Yes, I think you're a remarkable professor, and I think that in itself already kind of, you know, uh, brings a lot of students to your classroom. But then I think that it's wonderful also that you're such a fabulous cultural guide. You are really somebody who like orients our students to be curious, and you give them the information to be able to kind of venture out. And I have a question that I kind of want to start with
Okay.
is what do you think makes art in Andalusia so special? Or yeah, special. That's what I want to say. It's special.
Well, I think for me it's easy to, I mean, because living in Sevilla, I always consider Sevilla like a crossroad of civilization. Maybe you say more like a melting pot of
Yes.
culture. So if we think about all the culture, all the people that came from the Phoenician to the Renaissance, the Roman, the Visigoth, the Romani community, and all of them they leave their footprint here in this city, no? So it's a very rich culture. So for me, I mean, it made my life very easy that we have this rich culture here in Sevilla.
It set you up,
Yeah.
right? You said, okay, like let's look around.
Yeah.
And it's a city that gives. It is a city that gives that, kind of just jumps out at you. You're like, there's an aqueduct on Luis Montoto. What's that? Like, what's going on with that? Right? Like, I definitely had that kind of reaction. I was like, oh, there's an aqueduct. And I think we also hear about Seville being a place for a lot of films and movies, right? So thinking about the mythical, right, Dorne Kingdom in the Alcazar. So it does it gives a
Phantom
lot.
Menace and Star Wars. That's true.
Yeah.
A lot of old movies, like the people don't remember, but the Lawrence of Arabia
Oh yeah,
was filmed
absolutely.
here, 7 Oscar.
It's a pretty big one,
Yeah.
7 Oscars. That's not a small feat.
Yeah. I feel like it being cultural, I love that it's also historical and that adds to the culture too. Like it's not just the dancing and the guitar that we were talking about, but also the history and like all the artists from before, and that's so cool to
Yeah,
have that connection.
absolutely.
I mean, the people bring with that knowledge that the Spain is flamenco, is dance. I mean, when they are here, they discover that is so much other energies and cultures and
Yeah.
legacy that they can discover.
Yeah.
Can that ever feel frustrating when I feel like maybe you meet someone and they're just like, okay, I'm going to Andalusia, I'm gonna eat lots of jamon and I'm gonna see flamenco. And you're like, okay, wait, like let's take a step back, right? There are lots of other things at play
Other things
here.
and other cultures, not only flamenco. I mean, Spain is very multicultural.
Yeah, absolutely, right? If you go to Galicia,
Yeah, yeah. It's
right, different.
another dance, another singing,
Lleida,
or
change it up, absolutely.
language, everything.
Yeah. And I guess also like as a creative person,
Hmm.
right? What do you think Sevilla or the energy here kind of gives you? Like, what does it mean for you to be an artist here in Seville?
I mean, Sevilla always give me something to have an inspiration for it. I don't know if I need an inspiration. I just go to the Fine Art Museum that is close to my house. This is my neighborhood, and I go in front of the of Velázquez or Murillo,
Oh,
and I mean, I don't expect to be Murillo or Velázquez, but this is always good to, I mean, to have them to close to you,
Yeah,
Feel empowered,
feel empowered.
inspired.
Exactly.
absolutely. You know, also something that I love is I love going to Museo Bellas Artes
Mhm.
on Sundays because when you walk out, there's a beautiful market of
Market.
folks selling their work. And I
Mhm.
have to say, that sort of this is an art museum where I think that we know these are greats, these are the greats. And then you walk into this mercado artesano and you're like, oh my gosh. You're like, wow, there's so many talented local folks, as you know, as we would expect, as we would hope. But it's beautiful.
I haven't unlocked that in my experience yet.
No?
I
You
need
gotta
to see
go.
it.
You gotta
Love
go.
it. And you can also go on the Thursday night.
Mm,
People dance tango,
Oh
Argentinian
my
tango in the
gosh.
plaza. It's not every Thursday, but there's a small community of Argentinian that go there to dance
that's so
tango.
magical.
Wow.
Yep,
Right? Art changes forms.
yep.
That's like, it's really just, that's wild. I did not know that. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm gonna go check out some tango dancing.
I was wondering, Alejandro, if you could give us a little anecdote about where art came from. Like, was it in your family? Like, what inspired you to do art? Or was it self-taught? Like, how did you get to the point that you are now?
I mean, I think in my case it was very easy because my dad is a musician, he's a composer, he's a painter too, and my mom used to work in a theater company. I have uncles that are actors, so art has been always part of my life,
Performing and physical
and
art,
physical
both.
art. So when I had the opportunity to pick my studies, I was pretty sure that I want to study art history.
Mhm. Wow, that's cool. And are they in Sevilla? Are they from
I
there?
mean, my family is from Alcalá de Guadaira, a
Oh,
town
right.
close to here, and also from Cadiz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a nice area.
that's my also connection with the flamenco music. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm working on learning how to tocar las palmas.
A little bit of compass.
You know, I'm struggling with the contratiempo,
Yeah.
but I've got the picadito down. I have to say, everyone's like, "What? I don't got that down." And I like that one. It's very simple for me, but the contratiempo I struggle with a lot. And I feel that sometimes when I walk through the center and I walk past your classroom,
Yeah.
I always am like, just like, what are they doing in there?
Now we learned today how to do the compass of alegrías, actually.
So awesome. It's like, you know, as someone who arrived to Seville, I live here. I've been living here for quite some time.
Mhm.
And, there are things where you're like, "Oh, wow, I need to sign up for a class. I need to sign up for a class to learn how to maybe dance sevillanas or how to really, feel good in being able to participate and understand really what is this art, right? Not just be like, okay, like I know how to kind of, someone made fun of me the first time that I was talking about, when I say tocar las palmas, I'm talking about clapping, right?
Mhm.
But I used to say, yeah, there's two types of claps, right? One is profound and one is shallow. And they're
So,
like, true, but also there's so much more. And there really is. So I think that's so awesome.
There's so much to it. I took Sevillana classes and it felt like I could not learn it. Like,
combine feet with the hands.
yeah. The arms, I felt like that was a workout in itself, like keeping my arms up the whole time. But the fact that there's four Sevillanas, and then I learned later that I learned like the less intense version, like beginner, like she changed it for us a little bit.
Beginner one, right? There's four
Yeah.
processes. There's like four steps of Sevillana.
First
Right.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, kind of talking about all this art and, really, really, we're hyping you up. We appreciate you as a professor on our staff. I'm wondering if you're working on any projects currently that you would want to share or, kind of tell us a bit about.
Well, and now I have a couple of exhibition coming. They're gonna be very small, and I was thinking about portraits of musician, jazz musician, and flamenco musician, like people that I really respect,
Mhm.
and we'll see how it's going.
Alejandro, it's funny. When you were in Granada, Alejandro said, "Do you know Omega?" And I said, "No." And he said, okay, you have to go listen to
Omega.
Omega. And I said, okay. And I went home and I listened to Omega and I said, wow, this is
Fun.
with headphones.
Mhm.
Highly recommend listening to Omega with headphones. You need that surround sound experience.
Mhm.
So, you know, highly recommend checking out Alejandro's exhibitions and seeing what he's up to. Um, Getting into one of his classes, I highly recommend.
Thank you.
Striking up
Have you
conversation.
worked on portraits before, since you said that's what you would be doing?
Yes, I mean, it's not my strong point,
Mm-hmm.
but I love to do portrait. I'm basically what I do is digital art, and I'm
Oh.
passing now my digital art to a physical format.
Got it.
So
Mm.
that's the idea. I was start to see always my work trapped in my computer
Right.
and not to do anything with it. So
Yeah.
I decided to leave it the opportunity and leave the opportunity to see a little bit of my art.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I find in your art, you use a lot of symbols that are very locally important.
Of
Yeah.
course. I love the local iconography.
Yeah.
I love love of the Hollywood, the Virgins
Yeah.
Mary, and this is something that really connect with the surrounding,
Yeah.
and people love it too.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned also you're working. I mean, I'm a New Yorker at heart, right? And I live in Seville, but I'm a New Yorker. You mentioned a very cool project that you're working on, I think with music and hip hop, possibly.
Yes, because one of my other obsession is hip hop. I grew up with hip hop music. I think I'm part of that generation. So I wanted to do a homage of the pioneers of the hip hop, of the rap music.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I'm thinking about to do a series of all the most famous band, the Public Enemy,
Of course.
Run DMC, Beastie
Yeah,
Boys.
totally. Very important.
I
Are
mean,
there
very
any
important.
Very
are there
important.
any Spanish hip hop bands you
Of
like
course, and also one of the best band or rapper is from Sevilla.
KCO.
Yeah, no,
I'm
KCO.
like, I don't know. I'm like, this is also maybe debatable, but
Casey, I mean, people are always in between KCO and SFDK, no?
right. And who also are from Seville.
From Seville.
Yeah.
KCO is from Zaragoza,
Yeah.
from the north,
Mm.
and they are both considered the most famous rap poet of the history of the hip hop that has been created from the beginning of the 90s.
And you know who else I think of who's Andaluza? I think of Gata Katana.
Also too.
I think of Gata Katana, who I went through a huge phase where I was obsessed with Gata Katana. I was like, I think last year it was yeah 2023. The documentary came out about her, and I remember learning a little bit about her because it was 8M, which is like International Women's Day, and I was working in a school at that time, and they had put up posters of Andalu women
Hmm.
that they did reports on that they really wanted to like teach others about, that they really wanted to highlight.
Hmm.
And I remember reading a poster on the wall about Gata Katana, and I remember pausing and saying, who is that? And I started listening to her music, and I said, oh my gosh, she is so good.
Yeah, there's a lot of female rapper artists
Yeah,
in this country.
so
Very
good.
powerful.
Really powerful. So that I felt, maybe, you know, kind of putting my own motives here and being like, oh, so I know you're also doing this project that I'm curious about, you know?
Included.
So it's so awesome. We did also just give a lot of great music recommendations. So
Yeah.
you should definitely
I'm gonna
check
be
out those
taking advantage
artists.
of that for sure.
Absolutely. So, I'm wondering that if you could maybe share with us um, a favorite memory of yours in working with CIEE, or a good memory. It's a good memory.
Working with CIA, I have a
Yeah.
lot of
It's a tough question.
a lot of good memories because I mean my work is always the same. I always teach the same classes and go to the same places. But for me, what is special is to have new people
Right.
every year from different backgrounds, from different cities. So I really enjoy to know from them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's kind of right, like people come in and out, but the things that they leave with us and the things that they show us, they stay. And I think it's one of these amazing aspects about this study abroad world, about being on site with students. It's that ultimately there's this constant like cycle of, okay, we start, we get to know each other, we bond, and then we have to go back, but we still remain in touch, or we still keep the lessons. And yeah, and I think I've said it several times in this podcast that you definitely are someone who leaves memorable experiences with our students. So really kind of to close this episode out. Just want to say once more, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's
I'm
been
excited
a pleasure.
for the exhibition.
Right. We'll have to
More than invited.
yes, we'll have to follow up and get folks details on that. You know, you'll have some CIEE supporters in your corner always. So on that note, I just want to offer another special thanks to the folks that helped make this episode possible. A big shout out and thank you to Sergio Jimenez, our friends Ivan and Mauro, and of course, CIEE Seville and CIEE Corporate for the equipment and the distribution of this podcast. And lastly, the biggest thank you to you, the listeners. This is Sarah Silverstein, Shay Carlberg, and Alejandro Varela reporting from the Arts and Culture episode. Take care.
Adios.
Bye.